This is going to be this here is going to be my general theory about the Holy Trinity and the meaning of the scriptures because it pertains to the political theory that I've been formulating about the crisis of the sovereign authority, the metastasis of state functions, as well as the criminal behavior within the government, within the state, that is going unaddressed by the sovereign authority. This seems to be happening everywhere. You have to take the individual public servants um, and consider them individually uh, with regard to whether they have the authority to do what they're doing. But everything is kind of waiting for this one small problem to be solved. The three levels of government are not the same as the Holy Trinity, although I believe they once were. I believe the first governments were direct democracies in a sense. So the private citizen who probably owned land was the legislator himself. This was the Holy Father, as is described. So the private citizen corresponded to the municipal level of government as well as the legislative and the political party or the unit of representation in the first primitive tribal government. This was three things in very ancient times, and to us it is many things, although you notice the pattern of two things distinguished and then a third thing which is both and neither. The thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis. So, as it's described in the scriptures, Jesus is not one religion. Jesus was the Lord of the Jews, the Romans, probably every nation. He says that he conquered the whole world. So he's the Lord in the sense that the King of England is the Lord of England, not your landlord. The Son would have been the representative of the Father sent out to form the state. So the original elector would have sent literally his son to form a government, probably because the son was the able bodied one able to fight. So when we describe the Catholic faith or the faith in an abstract sense of the established churches of England, that is the law of the nation and not an individual person's religion, which in modern times is just anybody's house who says that they are, uh, who wants to call themselves a priest. So the Catholic ecclesiastical authority is sometimes confused with what the Protestants call a church, which is your religion, which is your community organization, your political party. The First Amendment is already sound and totally universal Christian doctrine. The church establishes the government. The church is the political party. It establishes the government and never the other way around. This is why we consider it so outrageous and evil when any government even expresses the desire to violate the First Amendment, because it is totally and completely universal and because it defines the entire purpose of the government. And no government could ever violate it and be considered at all legitimate. All governments are elected. The first governments were evidently elected by some sort of convention um, in feudal times when the system was relatively similar. The churches, the individual religions, were known to a sovereign authority. I believe this is who is referred to as the bishop. This is a municipal authority commissioned by the sovereign state, the king or the republic. And the ancient patriarch of the individual families is recognized but not established by, for instance, the Church of England. When they say they have an established church, it was established by the ancient patriarchs of those families. It was not established by the government. And the patriarchs of those families created the incorporation of families that owned that library and that school and that meeting hall, which was willed to the priest and all of the members of the church. Anyone can really do that now. When Protestants refer to a church, they're referring to anyone's house who registers their will and gives it to whatever incorporation of people and registers their will at a clerk of the state. So when the Catholics refer to the church, they're referring to the ecclesiastical authority, the clerk, where that house is registered, incidentally. This is a confusion of language only. So when they would say that someone was a heretic, they would say that they thought that they had inherited a county clerk's office as opposed to their dad's house. This could obviously lead to all kinds of occult practices within those houses with regard to whatever the understanding of everybody in that house is, or whatever disciplinary measures might exist in that house, as well as schism within the Republic, because people need to see the citations and certifications and registrations of publications in general. So if a county clerk's office was treated like somebody's house, you would lose all of the state records with all of the historical information that is in them. This is obviously such a simple function of the state that when it is messed up, it is and should be treated as malicious. The king or the republic, the sovereign authority, accounts using the municipal agencies for all of the citizens so that they can account for what historical information is being deleted or destroyed. The law code or the sovereign records of a king would protect the nation by keeping an account of anyone who had attempted to destroy historical information about the well-being of the people of the nation. We perceive sectarian socialism or fascism to be this giant metastasis of state contractors, especially in the university and among the doctors who hold a state license to use the public record. Obviously, the doctors certify the masters, and if you have obscure schismatic records with regard to the understanding in an individual house, you can get slavery. The feudal contractor, I believe, was a nobleman in ancient times who was conscripted at a predetermined time. So this was neither a private citizen nor the government, but at times private and at times public, although it was a predetermined time because of the primitive communication systems then. So in a neo-feudal, neo-colonial fascist arrangement, you have these state contractors randomly declaring themselves the government, and you have a general breakdown of the distinction between public and private things and who is actually even the government. People treating government offices like private offices and treating their house, calling their house a municipal authority. So in general, that is why you hear this language from scripture being used to describe the current crisis of the sovereign authority and all the criminality taking place within the government or under the auspices of the state. So in this theory of the Holy Trinity, what I am referring to as God is simply the whole historical record. The Son would be the state records, the Father would be everybody's, all the citizens' individual records, and the Spirit would be the library of all of the state contractors, all of the university libraries and colleges of the doctor.